Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. I am Dwayne Rothman. I'm the Furious Wrestling fan. Once again, as I was talking before on the last review that I have done, which was WrestleMania 6, WrestleMania season is here and almost over. And obviously, this year has been a lot different because of the pandemic that I guess we're in the middle of. So there's a lot of things going on this WrestleMania season that have never happened before, and it's going to change the event as we know it in so many different ways. That's going to make history all in of itself. So we're going to do a little different thing that we've never done here on the channel so far, and I'm stepping into the ring, and I'm going to be joined in this discussion about this year's WrestleMania, all the news that is supposedly happening, even though it may be hearsay. But we're going to talk about this year's WrestleMania and the fact that it is only 1 week away from the recording of this. So stepping into the ring with me is my brother. He is getting ready to release a solo EP here in the matter of days. Maybe I think it's about a week out. Called Weight of a Dream, and I'll give him a chance to talk about that here in just a few moments. But stepping into the ring with me to talk about WrestleMania 36, my brother, Daniel Rothman. Bro, welcome to the show.
What up, bro? What up, bro? What up, bro? How you doing?
Doing all right. How you doing?
How you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right. Going insane, rather, due to this self-isolation. And so we're here to talk about some wrestling. And my audience doesn't know yet because I haven't had you on the show yet, but we talk about wrestling a lot.
All the fucking time.
Yeah, right. And we've done it since we were, young, and we've done some wrestling ourselves, and we've had all the games, and we were fans all the way since we were kids and all that. And we've seen several of WrestleManias, not all of them, but quite a few. And, still tend to keep up on it, whether we want to or not. It's just we can't really tear ourselves away from it.
Right.
At least not 100% and completely.
I mean, I don't really watch it anymore, but I mean, just scrolling through Facebook, scrolling through Instagram, seeing all the bullshit and everything. And, it's like, and then of course it's like, oh, well, this happened. Let me look up what other bullshit's going on.
Right. Yeah. You see a headline and, at least curious. And there's still a couple competitors and a couple superstars that I'm still fans of. So obviously if they pop up, I want to check out what's going on. But yeah, we're going to jump into WrestleMania 36 here. And as I was mentioning before with doing my WrestleMania 6 review, they had 65 or 67,000 plus people. WrestleMania 3 had 93,000 plus people, I believe it was.
Sounds about
There was
right.
one of them a couple years back, had 101,000, I think a couple years back. And they're going to, break and make history, I guess, again, where this year it's going to be 0.
Yep.
Which, have you seen any of the empty arena Raw and SmackDowns, or even clips of them or anything?
I've seen a couple clips yet, and I mean, I don't think I've seen any of the promos. Like, I heard Stone Cold come out and cut a promo on 316 day. That I didn't see. But I did see a couple of the clips from like the matches and stuff like that, and I'm just kind of like, it was the best way to explain it. I wish I was the one that said this because it was perfect. I saw it on Facebook. Somebody said that it was like watching a sitcom without a laugh track. It was like the most perfect analogy, because think about watching in a sitcom like George Lopez or Everybody Loves Raymond or something like that without the audience laugh track. It would just seem like the show is so empty. Somebody says a joke and there's no laughter. It's like
right.
a spot happens.
It's like
a spot happens. There's no cheering. A spot happens. There's no booing. Nothing.
All right. Well, what's so awkward to me about it is the fact that, these guys and gals, all of them, they'll do their entrances and stuff, and they'll walk out to the ring, and they're still like throwing their hands up in the air, and like I get it, like that's what they're used to, and it's still like somewhat of a performance, I guess, as far as the TV audience is concerned, but it just seems so awkward. For instance, I think it was the first SmackDown that they did with no audience, and it's Jeff Hardy's return match, which I've been waiting for almost a year now, and he gets in there and he's like, Orlando, and he does that, leg drop between the legs, and Triple H is on commentary, and he goes, yeah, I think he's trying to hype up the Orlando crowd. It's just not working. So they even, mention it and poke fun at it almost on the commentary, and it's just, you can hear every single word that is said, which it's weird because I've tried to watch some of this, kind of like in a way where we would watch some of our old wrestling tapes, because we never had an audience, right?
I mean, we had those like couple kids that were like 3, 4, 5 years old that you told to shut up. I mean, we had them once.
Hey man, I was the heel. Let's throw that out there right now. I was the heel in that scenario. Okay, not that big of an asshole, but still, like, the point is I try to look and watch it, kind of like that. But I don't know. It's still not the same.
Right.
It really isn't. And I don't know if it's because of their body language and stuff is still catered towards, a live audience. But I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain.
Or the fact that there's empty seats there and not a cornfield.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's that too. But my point to bringing that up is obviously kind of back around to my original point, is the fact that this is going to be the first WrestleMania with no fans,
right?
None. And WrestleMania has always, even whether you liked them or not. And I've watched a few old WrestleManias within the last year or two. I've seen WrestleMania 1, WrestleMania 2, WrestleMania 6. I've seen some of the old ones, and I've obviously have seen ones when we were growing up. And I'm talking like WrestleMania 14 that I've seen. I've seen WrestleMania 25. I've seen WrestleMania 30, and I've seen WrestleMania 35. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a lot of them throughout the years. And they've always prided WrestleMania as being this big, humongous like stage show. It's just this big visual, I can't find the word that I was trying to use here. It's just this big deal visually.
It's a spectacle.
There you go. That's the word I was looking for. But yeah, this big visual spectacle. And this year, being that it's going to be at the Performance Center, with no fans, what do you think? I mean, what is your opinion on, I guess, how do you feel about how obviously it's going to be completely different, visually, in every sense of the word. So what is your opinions on, how it's going to look and, all that right now?
I mean, it's going to look hokey as fuck because, I mean, think about professional wrestling and what it is and how long it's been going on. I mean, hell, even indie shows that draw 10 people, are going to be...
Right, there's at least somebody.
Right. There's going to be literally nobody. So think about, I mean, really sit down and think about the last time that there's been a wrestling match to no people. An actual professional wrestling, organization having a match in front of nobody. I can think of 2 times that happened. One was Mankind and The Rock in their empty arena match, which was at Super Bowl halftime show, I think.
Yep, and that was 98 or 99, somewhere in there.
And then I think it was Jerry Lawler and somebody else had one way back.
I believe that was Jerry Lawler and Terry Funk.
It sounds right. I knew there was 2 of them. So twice in the history of professional wrestling, which goes back to what, the 40s, 50s, if not longer?
Well, there may have been some other ones in like the territorial days and everything else, but I mean, I guess at this point, who's really counting? But even with that though, that was like a gimmick or a stipulation of the match.
Right.
It was billed that way on purpose.
Yeah.
So, it was completely different. And now you're going to have your show of shows, your major show, of the year, take place in front of no people in this small. Obviously, the Performance Center is a a great building, a big building where they do a lot of training and multiple rings and all that stuff. And the fact that they can do this here is great, but compared to the big open, football stadiums and everything they've been doing it in the last couple of years, it's just, I mean, we're going to be watching WrestleMania, but I feel like it's not going to be watching WrestleMania, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it's probably going to look and feel like watching two wrestlers in the ring practice.
Right, and it's just going to be weird.
Yeah, but the thing of it is, though, is I think I've seen so many people, they need to reschedule, they need to reschedule it. So, I mean, I don't know if that was something you were going to dive into here in a little bit, or if that's something you want me to expand on right now.
Since you bring it up, go right ahead.
I mean, you got to think about it. Most of the people that are like, oh, they should just postpone it. Okay, then what? What are you going to do to fill the time with? What are you going to do to, like drag out those storylines or, something else? Are you going to have Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre just on a episode of Monday Night Raw now? Because, I mean, yeah, you could just fucking send Lesnar home for 3 months because, I mean, it's about how much time he takes off anyways, and then just do that match later. But it's like, the non-part-time matches, the non-part-timers, I mean, what are you going to do? Just have those matches now and then do something else when WrestleMania comes back around? Or are you just going to try to promote the same card for 3 months? I mean, just making the decision to postpone it at the drop of a hat makes so many other problems.
It does, I think, for your major main event matches, I guess, the programs that you were actually working towards, and that's, I guess, your Brock Lesnar and your Drew McIntyre and like your Rhea Ripley and Charlotte, things like that. But some of these other preliminary matches that they've just kind of thrown together, you could just culminate those and just do something else later on. You could do that, but I mean, yeah,
because realistically, who's going to give a fuck about the U.S. Championship match anyway right now? So, I mean, yeah, you could just throw that on an episode of Monday Night Raw and call it a day. But when you're talking about Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre, I mean, does Brock Lesnar just get another 3-month vacation, or what? I mean, and so how are you gonna? But even still, that one there, how are you gonna carry that angle for 3 months? How are you still gonna promote that match and make people want to see it 3 months from now?
I mean, to be honest, I don't want to see it now, let alone 3 months from now.
I mean, the only hope that I have is that Drew McIntyre actually goes over, but I again, reading into the rumors and the dirt sheets and all that shit, which is like the fucking wrestling fan's pastime. You can't be a wrestling fan and not read dirt sheets. It's just the way it is.
Right.
But the current speculation right now is that the plan for, I mean, from what I've read, probably from fucking Dave Meltzer of all people, but from what I've read and heard is that the plan for Drew McIntyre to go over is now out the window, and they're going to keep the belt on Brock, just so probably later on down the road they can have the match they were going to have at 36 any fucking ways.
Probably like at a SummerSlam or something like that. Just postpone it until their next major thing. I mean,
that way he can still have his moment and it be in front of a crowd. But I mean, think of being Drew McIntyre though. It's like he's already going to miss out on that quote unquote WrestleMania moment, in front of fucking 90,000 people in a stadium. So it's like, okay, he's missing out on that. So even if they do it at SummerSlam, oh my God, Drew McIntyre finally got his SummerSlam moment. That just doesn't, no.
Yeah, it's not quite the same. It doesn't have that same,
No, so I mean, it's
impact at all.
As far as I'm concerned, Drew McIntyre's WrestleMania moment's already fucking ruined. So you either wait a year to put the belt on him so he can have the WrestleMania moment next year if it's that fucking important, or just, stick with the original plan. I mean, yeah, it would be nice to have him, win the belt and go over in front of a crowd, but I mean, it's not going to be a WrestleMania moment unless it's at fucking WrestleMania.
Right. Well, yeah, of course.
But I just think postponing it would actually be more of a hassle, because half of your angles are probably going to be played out by then and nobody's going to give a fuck. You're going to have a completely different card, which, I mean, every pay-per-view, every episode, every Monday Night Raw, SmackDown, NXT, whatever the fuck, the cards are subject to change. That's wrestling, the way it's always been, always will be. So they could just, they could postpone WrestleMania for 3 months and have a completely different card. But then the other problem too is they'd have to find a stadium or a venue of some kind or an arena that would be willing to house WrestleMania, that large of an event, especially if it's a full weekend long thing with Access, Hall of Fame, Takeover, all that shit. They've got to find a stadium or an arena that'd be willing to accept them to begin with, in 3-4 months time. And a lot of places probably, a lot of stadiums and arenas and shit might not even take bookings right now.
Well, yeah, not right now, because there's still things across the country that are still being canceled all the way into May and June. So
they might not even take bookings until July and August because, it's just hard saying how this shit's going to play out.
And by then you're looking at SummerSlam time anyway. So,
So I think, honestly, I think the smart move for them is to go ahead with WrestleMania, me personally.
And I can agree with that. And what I think is going to be interesting about that, and I can, the whole thing aside about canceling it or postponing it and all that, there's a part of me that wants to see them just continue on with it, because I want to see what they're going to do in order to make this still some kind of a spectacle worth watching.
Yeah, that too.
And we're actually going to get into that right now. Talking about, the match cards and all that. I've seen a couple different things that, like, they're trying to do these different match types, match scenarios and match stipulations in order to, I think, make it a little more exciting and a little more interesting. But on top of that, okay, for instance, we're going to go with the AJ Styles, The Undertaker match that's supposedly going to be taking place. And the match stipulation is a boneyard match, which I don't know what that is. And I don't know anybody who does know what that is, but it almost sounds like a buried alive type match or a graveyard match, maybe like when they had in WCW or something. But the speculation that I've read is something along the lines to where they'd be able to do this outside of the Performance Center somewhere else, so that they can do that one and still keep a limited amount of people at said Performance Center. So I've heard that one. And then just recently I read that the John Cena, the Fiend Bray Wyatt match is going to be a Firefly Funhouse match, whatever the hell that is. So that may be another thing that they film perhaps somewhere else, in order to keep a limited amount of people at the Performance Center, and also changes things up, for this empty arena WrestleMania. So not only are we going to see a bunch of these matches without any fans and in this empty arena, but if we, I guess, change up the background, I guess that is the term I'm going to use here. For a couple of these matches, it changes, it gives it a little more flavor to a couple of these matches and segments. So it's maybe not so boring with, just an empty arena.
Right. Yeah. Having a full WrestleMania card in the Performance Center, wrestling to empty seats, for the entirety of it, especially since it's a fucking 2-day event, seeing that shit, for that long without any break, any different visuals would probably get monotonous as shit.
Probably. And there's another thing right there. The fact that it's taking place over 2 days now. And obviously, we're not stupid. We understand why this is a thing, right? Their tagline, the first time I heard it made me chuckle just a tad, where they said, oh, well, WrestleMania is too big for one day. Well, it has been for the last several years. The fucking event's like 8 hours long, right? I can have, an 8 or 10 hour day at work and, just be finishing this fucking show. So
I remember the last
it's been too long for a while, but
yeah, I remember the last 2 WrestleManias at your house. It's like, I'd get there at like 4 or 5, pre-show started at fucking 5, so I'd get there around like 4 or something like that and wouldn't even leave, the show would be done basically by like midnight, so it's like, and I was fucking exhausted by the end of it. It's like, dude, I've had days literally at work easier than that.
Right. Well, that's what I mean.
It was a fucking exhausting experience sitting through a fucking 7-hour, pay-per-view.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so my point was, the fact that their little tagline there is too big for one day, but we all know the real reason for this is because they can only have so many people in one place at one time due to these restrictions that we currently have going on. So that's, WWE marketing at work there, trying to play it off as, this is a brilliant idea on their part. But that begs the question where I've seen, and I don't think it's like set in stone. And obviously, because things are changing every single day, and we're going to get into that here in just a minute. But what basically for WrestleMania Part 1 and Part 2, because there's going to be a Saturday and Sunday, what matches are you going to see on each show? Is that going to make one day better than the other day? Are you going to see half the stuff on the first day and go, the other crap I really don't care about on the second day? That's going to be an interesting dynamic in and of itself.
I feel like I read somewhere what the match, or at least what some of the match card was going to be for both days.
Right, and that's what I mean. I've seen that also, but right now I don't know if that's necessarily set in stone with people dropping out and things being changed almost on a daily basis still at this point. So the one that I saw has probably been changed by now, because the one that I saw that was a tentative one I'd seen several days ago.
Yeah.
We look at this, and you've got what I would consider, I guess, two main event matches. You're looking at the WWE Championship match, and you're looking at the Universal Championship match. So, obviously, you would think that you would have one of those on each days.
Yeah.
Then you also got the, excuse me, the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse match. You would think, okay, maybe like different areas and that kind of stuff or something. If that's indeed what those are, again, that's speculation at this point. You would have one of them on each show. Or on one on each day. You've got 3 women's title matches. So already one of them is going to have 2 women's title matches. One of them is going to have 1, or at least that would be how I would imagine that going. You've got both the tag team titles have actually finally been announced, that those are going to be taking place. So you'd imagine one of those would be on each day, and then they've added some other, matches that, quite honestly, I don't really care about as much, that, aren't for titles, aren't really for much anything. It's just, I think at this point, they're trying to just add some matches in because they have had so many people just drop out.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's pretty much, everybody knows by now that Roman's pretty much out, which,
right,
especially for him, it's understandable. I mean, beating leukemia fucking twice. Yeah, his immune system's fucking roasted.
Right.
But I also heard Daniel Bryan pulled out, which I think he's got some type of, autoimmune disorder as well. So that makes perfect sense. But
yeah, for instance, I have a current list. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily current. Again, this is a day or two ago also, but this currently lists 8 different wrestlers who are named as being a part of WrestleMania who are no longer a part of it. Roman Reigns, obviously one of them. The United States champion Andrade, The Miz, Murphy, Rey Mysterio, Dana Brooke, Asuka, and Cesaro are now apparently all out of Mania. Ooh. So, yeah, we have seen several different things about different replacements and, different matches and stuff taking place. And so, like, the match card that I'm looking at here is nowhere close to right because it lists all of these names in here somewhere. So... with the exception of Dana Brooke, I think she was one of the first ones that, was basically going to be out, and she was supposed to be a part of the 6-pack challenge for the SmackDown women's title. She's not listed in here, but regardless, there's 8 different names right there, and there may even be more at this point because, again, that's a couple days older. So with the amount of people that are dropping out and everything changing every single day. And if I'm not mistaken, they were supposed to film because we're not going to get a live WrestleMania this year. That's not going to be a thing. It's going to be a taped WrestleMania. Okay.
Which is also a first, I think.
I believe so. Which that right there in of itself also adds an interesting dynamic just because when you tape something, you can spice stuff up in post-production. So we might get a little something there because of that too. But I believe they were supposed to film this on Wednesday and Thursday coming up this week. So we still may see a few more changes between now and then before we actually get what WrestleMania is going to ultimately be. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I think I had read something that they were supposed to start pre-taping matches this week, like this past week.
Again, the thing that I saw was a few days ago. That may have changed again too.
Right.
It's everything's changing so much.
Yeah, and so yeah, it's going to be a pre-taped, WrestleMania, which is going to be, a pretty bold move too to even like advertise this as WrestleManias. I mean, but hey, Vince has said for fucking years on national TV week after week that he's got the biggest fucking grapefruits in the fucking world. So, I mean, I guess this is his way of proving it, right? Like, yeah, I can still have WrestleMania in front of no fans. I don't care.
Yeah, right.
Like,
test me.
Right. And here's the thing. People are always like a lot of people that I've seen saying, oh, they need to reschedule it, they need to postpone it, they need to cancel it, whatever the fuck. They're also, the people going on about the AEW ratings war and shit. And it's like, okay, fuck the ratings war. I'm not even going to talk about that. It's a waste of fucking time. But I mean, it's pretty evident already at this point that Vince has already done shit his pants over AEW. So you really think Vince is going to like try to take a step back and, postpone WrestleMania while AEW is still out there doing shit? Ain't happening.
Right.
Vince is still going to do everything in his power to do something potentially better than AEW. And not only that, fuck, where was I going with that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Only
you know that, bro.
I had a point in there somewhere that I was working towards, and then it's gone now.
Yeah. Well, again, this WrestleMania is going to be very interesting. It's not. Hopefully, it's not going to be, a marathon to watch each day. What's going to be interesting to.
Well, like I had told you before, it almost makes me excited to see it now because it's. I mean, yeah, it's pre-taped, which hell, last year's WrestleMania could have been pre-taped. How the fuck would we have known that? I mean, we don't. We're not there at the stadium. But anyway, it's like being that it's pre-taped, being that there's no fans there, being that this is a whole new situation. It's a shitty situation that a lot of wrestlers probably don't want to deal with. A lot of, the writers are probably, working fucking overtime right now because half their fucking, participants on their card are gone, so they're having to rewrite half the fucking show. But maybe this is the fucking kick in the pants that they need to try to, like, hey, this is a shitty situation. We know it's a shitty situation. We know this show is more than likely going to suck because of the situation. Let's make the best of it we can. Let's, maybe try a little bit harder. Maybe it'll actually give them a good kick in the pants to actually put on a decent show.
I mean, if nothing else, they're gonna, and it's weird to say, with your biggest show of the year, and you're gonna go and use this show to try some new things. You would think that'd about be suicide for the show, but they're gonna hopefully try some new things, maybe see what works, see what doesn't. And for instance, I've come across a thing, and it's got to be because of all of this that's going on that. I've seen a thing here where it says WWE has a new idea for shows without live audiences. So let's see here. It says WWE is doing shows without live audiences as of late. Yeah. Come up with some new ideas. So they're like an idea of a WWE fan council. So, like, do you like this? Do you not watch this? And, do you like this format and this presentation? And how should fans react? Reactions be during a it's almost like this particular thing almost like looks like a not like a quiz, but like a survey, like as they're watching shows and stuff, like online and everything else, which is kind of weird.
It all sucks.
So, but but yeah, with that being said, I'm not really sure what else to talk about at this point. I mean, WrestleMania, it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be different.
We can talk about how pretty much everything that WWE has done. It's like been fucking terrible for the last like year to 2 years. At this point, if anything was going to tank fucking WrestleMania, why not be a virus? At least the WWE can say it wasn't their fucking fault.
We have no control over this part of it. We tried, damn it, we tried.
Right. They see, and that's the thing too. Like, if people come out and say, "Hey, WrestleMania sucked," okay, this is the worst WrestleMania of all time, WWE can say, "Well, at least we tried to have WrestleMania." You know, that's kind of like
that was not my fault.
Right. They can bring Gene Snitsky back for a fucking return. You know, I mean, what are they going to lose? Not much. They ain't going to lose an audience because they ain't going to have one. So, but I mean, the thing of it is like, that's kind of like their trump card in their back pocket. Like, oh, WrestleMania sucked. Well, we tried. You know what I mean? And it's like, if they did have a fucking stadium full of 90 fucking thousand people and they're like, hey, WrestleMania sucked, then what's their excuse? You know, they ain't got one. Now they do.
Right. It's their scapegoat.
Yeah. I mean, but like I said, though, it's because it's different, because it's a situation that we've never seen before, aside from 2 empty arena matches, which were done on fucking purpose. When's the last time, you've seen a professional wrestling event to no people? It's just never happened. So because it's something new and fresh that WWE hasn't done before. It's not something they've regurgitated. It's not something that doesn't require you to think back over a week. It's like, it's something that they haven't done. We know they haven't done it. You can't go back a year and be like, hey, they already did that. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's got that level.
It's got an element of an excitement to it because it is so different. So, but I mean,
it's fresh. It's new. It's a new scenario that we have never seen play out. And, Jim Cornette mentioned it on his podcast that, basketball, football, all them sports and shit that have been canceled and all that have off seasons. People go 6 months out of the year without watching football and basketball and all that shit that I don't fucking give a shit about. But when's the last time, an episode of Monday Night Raw was not on TV every Monday? Like 30 years ago. You know what I mean? It's been
exactly.
Wrestling doesn't stop. It doesn't matter what it is. Wrestling doesn't stop. Never. At least WWE has never stopped. I mean, I'm trying to think of a way to say this as like politely as and nicely as possible, but I mean, they literally had a guy fall from the ceiling and continued the fucking event. So, if that's not going to stop the WWE and Vince McMahon, then how do you expect them to stop over this virus? They ain't going to. They're going to find a way. Well, they're going to find a way to make it work.
Right. And we probably aren't going to know exactly what it is we're going to see until the day we actually go to watch it. So, trying to like go over the match card and everything else almost doesn't make any sense because half it's probably going to change by then anyway.
I mean, the only time I can think of to where wrestling stopped in its tracks, for a week. I mean, it still had content on the air. They still filled the time slot, but it was when Chris Benoit, and when all that shit went on with Chris Benoit, because they had that angle going where Vince, fucking got blown up and shit, and they were going to have his fucking memorial episode and everything. That opened up. There was nobody, they basically canceled Monday Night Raw. Scrapped that whole angle. It was never talked about again. And that Monday, there wasn't a single wrestling match on that Monday Night Raw. They filled it with, a whole memorial program to Chris Benoit. And so that's the only time I can think of to where wrestling stopped, but they still filled the time slot.
Well, that's the thing. I mean,
but I mean, like
as far as their weekly programs, they still have, like contracts and stuff with those networks and everything else. I mean, you have to put out some kind of content. That's your job.
But I mean, even when, like Owen Hart died, they finished the show. They did a memorial episode the next day where they actually had matches. When Eddie died, they did the same thing. Benoit, they just straight up canceled Monday Night Raw, but also because they were supposed to have a Vince McMahon memorial fucking show. And so they probably didn't have time to rewrite the show, for that one. But I mean, wrestling doesn't stop. The WWE, I mean, at least WWE doesn't stop. It hasn't stopped since it began. You know what I mean? So it's one of them things like this virus outbreak and everything like that. It ain't gonna happen. I mean, hell, even if I feel like even if the city of Orlando came in and told Vince, hey, you're not allowed to have X amount of people in the performance center, Vince would probably find somewhere to rent in a state that doesn't have, you know, really shit for outbreaks or something like that, where they haven't issued all these stay-at-home orders or whatever the fuck, and be like, hey, here's a boatload of money for me to rent your facility for a couple days so I can pre-tape these matches. You know what I mean? So even if they can't do it in the city of Orlando at the performance center, they'll find somewhere else to do it. Hell, Vince, give me a call. I got a backyard. You know what I mean?
I'll take your money, bro.
Right. Fuck Governor Whitmer. Backyard's open, fam.
Right?
I mean, hey, you know, just throw up a hard cam, maybe like, you know, one other camera guy to walk around. Hell, bro, let's fucking just straight up do, you know, an SMIW version for Vince. We'll do all the production for him, just me and you, 2 people for WrestleMania. Let's do it.
I mean, yeah, if you're gonna pay me a good bit, you know, I still got this mortgage to pay.
Right.
You know,
yeah, we ain't like every other fucking civilized country in the goddamn world. We still got to pay our bills because America.
America. Here you go. I got a little thing for you, something that we haven't talked about yet.
What's that?
The host of WrestleMania 36.
Not going there.
Don't want to go there? You want to talk about Gronk?
Just another classic case of, hey, let me go make a name for myself somewhere else that has nothing to do with wrestling and then just walk into WWE. Like
right.
Them
signed to a contract, the whole 9 yards. I mean, if he was supposed to be signed to a contract to wrestle, then I want to know why he's hosting the thing. I want to see him actually get in the ring, get slammed by somebody.
I mean, I suppose they could have signed him as just an on-screen personality. That could be his contract. I mean, you know, because they do have people under contract that aren't in competitive roles. But I mean, at that point, what the fuck is even the point of signing the guy? Because I don't know anybody that's even a fan of Rob Gronkowski to begin with, let alone anybody that's going to tune into WWE program to watch fucking Rob Gronkowski host WrestleMania or interview somebody. I mean, that's a waste of fucking money at that point. But it's like, it's another one of them things where the guy doesn't fucking belong there. You know, when they signed Cain Velasquez, the dude had, I mean, there was no point of signing Cain Velasquez. There's no point in bringing him in. You know, all these people that, you know, have a fucking, that made a name for themselves in the UFC or in football or whatever the fuck, that just walk into the WWE to a fucking $1 million contracts. I mean, there's no purpose in trying to work your way up. In my opinion, if you want to get into the WWE and, you know, actually have a decent contract and get a push as soon as you get there, there's no point in going up through the indies and all that, signing a developmental deal, working your way up through NXT and working your balls off to be a professional wrestler. There's no point anymore. You need to go somewhere else to learn how to be an entertainer and then go to WWE. Because Vince
there you go. That's it.
Because Vince
right there.
Because Vince ain't in the wrestling business. He's in the sports entertainment business.
Right.
So
exactly.
If you want, I guess if you actually want to be a professional wrestler and don't want to be an entertainer and make your name somewhere else, then I guess the only fucking hope you got anymore is AEW, and goddamn, we're in sad shape.
I'll go to NWA before that. I'll wrestle in front of those 50 people in front of their little bitty, studio audience before that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
That's right.
Hell, that's already more entertaining than anything I've seen on WWE programming in a while.
And that's actually something I haven't covered a lot of, but
what's that?
You know, NWA stuff.
Oh yeah.
But
real quick, since we're talking about, you know, all things wrestling, that's what we do. I mean, I know you haven't really covered or talked about AEW a whole lot on this channel, so I'm going to bring it up for you. How do you feel about Matt Hardy going to AEW?
Kind of conflicted on that one, actually. And I say that because that whole broken Matt Hardy thing, I never quite understood.
Yeah, I could never get behind it. I mean, it's kind of the same thing as the Fiend for me. Like, people are going apeshit over the Fiend. I know you like the Fiend, you know, and Bray Wyatt's current. I liked Bray Wyatt's Wyatt family gimmick tons better. I thought it was fucking brilliant. You know, because it brought back one of those things that we had talked about before, where fuck Braun Strowman all the way around. That guy is fucking useless as far as I'm concerned. One of the first things he ever did was come out and basically try to recreate the fucking finish that the Yeti had in WCW. But The guy's fucking worthless to me. At least, especially in the Wyatt family, he was like fucking 10 times more worthless than he already is. But the Wyatt family thing with Luke Harper and Eric Rowan, if they would have actually had somebody else, like anybody besides Braun Strowman in there, they could have actually had a fucking faction again. When's the last time there's been a fucking faction in the WWE, like the Ministry or the fucking, DX or, the corporation, like back in the fucking Attitude Era, 96, Bad Blood 96, I think it was, you had the fucking Disciples of Apocalypse, you had the fucking Godwins, the Ministry, DX. I mean, the faction wars were off the charts at that time, so the Bray Wyatt in the, in the Wyatt family, I thought was great. But to circle back to the original point, I don't see why people are going apeshit about the Fiend, and I don't see why people are going apeshit about broken Matt Hardy. I don't get it. I don't know. I could never get behind it. I mean, if that's what the performer himself wants to do, if that's what Bray Wyatt wants to do, if that's what Matt Hardy wants to do and everything like that, then, have at it. But I don't quite get the appeal.
Well, whether we get the appeal of it or not, I guess it's kind of irrelevant as long as we are the minority in this situation. Back when he did it originally in Impact, again, everybody was going crazy over it, and you're in a business where you want the attention. And if you're getting more attention doing that than you ever were doing anything else, you better take that and run with it. So I get it.
Especially in Matt Hardy's case, because, he was always overshadowed by Jeff to a certain degree when they were a tag team. Look at every time, Matt Hardy's tried to have a singles run, aside from the feud that he had with Edge. Most people didn't give a fuck about Matt Hardy when he was in a singles run. I'm sorry, but they didn't. Matt Hardy was very, very underrated as far as I'm concerned. Jeff was the younger one. He was, he had the more flashy gimmick, so, I think, Matt Hardy finally doing something to get him to kind of stand out, and I guess in a way step out of his brother's shadow, I guess if you want to look at it that way. It's kind of a poor, metaphor to a certain degree, but people finally started giving a fuck about Matt Hardy. I don't know how else to say it.
And again, he finally started, I guess coming into his own, doing his own thing. I didn't understand the whole Hardy compound and these goofy matches and stuff they were having on their property and all that, but the character itself, finally snapping and, kind of going off the rails, I could get behind a little bit. But the whole point of this here is how I feel about, how he, about him going to AEW. Obviously, when he went back to WWE, they didn't utilize him worth a damn. And when they tried to use that Woken thing, I don't think Vince or any of the creative, they understood it either. Which was obvious because it didn't last long. And when they tried to do it, they didn't push it very hard. So the fact that, from what I understand, and from one interview that I saw with him, he feels that he's only got a couple more in-ring years left anyway. He's going to want to do something that he enjoys doing. And obviously what he was doing in WWE, he wasn't enjoying. He wasn't getting utilized properly. And for somebody who's been in the business as long as he has, to not be utilizing that talent, to me, as far as I'm concerned, that's stupid. So if somebody else is wanting to, use that talent and put it to good use, then by all means. So I don't care for AEW for many reasons, because I think it's too hokey, too stupid, and they got too many people that don't know what the hell they're doing and don't care about the actual, business of it at all. So I'm thinking that, Matt Hardy is walking into, this group of people who don't give a shit about stuff enough. And that may work all right for him because he might have the creative control to do literally whatever he wants. For somebody like Matt Hardy, I think that's fine because he can do whatever he wants and still do, I guess, what's best for business and what makes sense. And, his things are going to make sense, at least from a psychology standpoint and, that kind of thing. Compared to, like, say, if you had creative control in WCW way back when, you could do whatever you wanted. Nobody actually gave a shit if it made any sense or, if there was any purpose to any of it. Matt, I think, will be able to use that creative control and that freedom to his advantage for the right reasons, to where some of these other guys that may already have that in AEW, well, you see what the result is on that. So I guess long and short, that answer is how I feel about it. I wish he would have stayed in WWE, because that's always been my brand. That's always what I've watched. But if that's where he's going to make the best use of what may be his remaining years, I guess I really can't fault him for that. So just because of that, I may tune into a segment or two at AEW, because I'm going to want to see what Matt Hardy's doing. So
yeah, when I saw that he made the jump over to AEW, and I also read a couple interviews with him, like pretty much right after his contract was over. I mean, there was a shred of hope, right there towards the end of his contract when he came out and confronted Randy Orton. There was a small sliver of hope that some people had that, hey, maybe they're going to finally use Matt Hardy. Nah, they just wanted to bury him on his way out. But anyway, I read that, when he basically sat down for his contract negotiations or whatever the fuck, he had like one thing that he wanted: a certain level of creative control. And if they weren't willing to give that to him, he was walking. So basically, and it's especially if he's come right out and said that he only feels that he's got a couple good years left, and the WWE isn't willing to let him do a whole lot. I mean, fuck, if I was in his shoes and I could, spend the last couple years of my wrestling career doing more of the things that I want to do and not what I'm told to do, then fuck yeah.
And at that point,
I'd go
we
over
need
there
to
too.
get comfortable shoes and gets to walking.
I mean, it don't matter to me if it'd be fucking NWA or heading back to Impact. I mean, if it was going out on my own terms, if I only had, say a 3-year contract left in me, I'm going to find a company that's going to give me the 3-year contract that I want. Even if it's, even if I got to take a pay cut or whatever, because I'm sure Matt Hardy ain't hurting for money anyways. But it's like, even if it was, money to me wouldn't matter at that point. It's like, if I've only got a couple years left, I want it to be a good couple of years. So I think I think for Matt Hardy, the performer, I think it was the probably the best thing he could have done. At this current point in his career. I mean, and not only that, I mean, obviously he's going to be thrust into, if not the main event scene, he's going to be, one of their top guys, and so you're going to have him, which I feel like the only saving grace that AEW might have, by using guys like Matt Hardy and Chris Jericho, because obviously when we talk about AEW and WWE right now, we're going to talk about WCW. We're going to compare it to WCW and WWE and what WCW did. I feel like it's almost inevitable, because the situation is so parallel to what happened then. And so back then you had all these fucking guys in WCW that were not willing to put anybody else over. I mean, you had Hulk Hogan, who didn't want to put over anybody for years. You had, Randy Savage, which, I mean, he wasn't always the easiest guy to work with. They brought over so many guys that wanted, so much creative control, didn't want to put nobody over, and like Chris Jericho, he's regarded as one of the best in the business, period. Putting people over, doing what needs to be done, what's best for business, all that kind of shit. He's, Chris Jericho's, I mean, whether you like the guy or you hate the guy, in terms of a performer and in terms of, a business sense and, working for the company, he's pretty much one of the top guys, one of the best guys for that scenario. I mean, yeah, he was the, the champion for a while, but I mean, fuck, look at their talent pool. Who else are they going to put the AEW championship on? And then you got John Moxley, which, he's just, from the interviews that I've seen with him, he seems like the type of guy that's gonna, he's not gonna bury other people. He's gonna do his job. So Matt Hardy being in there with guys like that, I think it's gonna work out well as well. But speaking of Matt Hardy and AEW and all that shit, how did you feel about Chris Jericho cutting a promo on a drone on Vanguard 1?
Did you hear that? That was about it, because I was, dumbfounded about what I was watching.
You cut out for a second there. Say that again.
I said, that silence that you just heard, well, that was about my reaction because I was dumbfounded about what I was watching. The fact that Jericho, I mean, I still actually chuckled at it a little bit because, Jericho is going to be the guy to pull this thing off, but to me, that's part of that broken Matt Hardy thing with his drone that I don't get. I don't understand it. And I don't know. It was another one of them things that I feel like with a lot of AEW stuff, it's how Jim Cornette puts it. It's gaga. It's just extra shit that doesn't really need to be there. It just, I don't know. I got a chuckle out of it, but there was nothing there to really take seriously.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of them things that could have probably done something better. But I mean, if you're looking at this on paper and you say, okay, we're going to have somebody cut a promo on Vanguard 1, we're going to have somebody actually go out to the ring and cut a promo on a fucking drone. Who is going to be the guy on your talent pool to do that?
Well, I think only your top guys are going to be able to do that. And I mean your top guys.
I
ones that have actually had the most training and the most experience with all types of different scenarios are the only ones going to be able to pull this off.
Honestly, I mean, I feel like Chris Jericho would be about one of the only people that could pull that off. I mean, because he looked like a goof. I mean, but for probably the last 10 years, he's looked like a goof. Coming out to the ring with a fucking scarf on and shit. I mean, how did I put that to you the other day? He's literally made a career out of. I'm gonna have to look at our conversation again because, dude, it was so perfect. But like, he literally like damn near made a career out of making a list out of looking like a goof.
All right.
So I mean, yeah, Chris Jericho looked like a goof cutting a promo on a drone, but maybe that was the point.
I mean, I guess, but still, I just chalk that up as another one of those AEW things that I just kind of looked at it and I watched it and I got a little chuckle and kind of shook my head and go, okay, I'm not watching any more of this right now.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much from what I've seen from AEW, if you watch an AEW show, you've pretty much, like, if you go and watch a fucking a match from an indie wrestling promotion, you've seen every AEW match.
Let me tell you something. I saw their very first weekly show, and I don't ever want to watch AEW ever again in my life. I mean, it sucked. I mean, it sucked so hard that I was offended by what I saw. It was bad.
I mean, I remember 10 years ago when, shit, I can't remember who it was, but I remember 10 years ago, the first time I saw the Canadian Destroyer get used, that was a pretty mean move, and now you see like 4 of them in every match, in AEW at least. Or in an indie promotion. That and it's like...
Well, I mean, shoot.
Well, but aside from like the every match has to have probably at least 4 Canadian Destroyers in it. Every match has to have about 15 super kicks in a 30-second time frame.
Well, with AEW and a lot of the indie promotions, that's a big problem. There's no structure to anything. They just do things for the sake of doing things. With WWE, yeah, it's hokey and it's corny and it's, again, you can't really take any of it seriously, but at least as far as their in-ring psychology, besides their tag team matches, the tag team wrestling psychology is fucking dead, period.
Oh, yeah,
that doesn't exist anymore. But, just for single matches and things like that, the good ones, the real good, strong talents, a lot of stuff you see him do in the ring, you can still kind of go, okay, well, I would understand why he just did that.
Yeah.
Well, to where you watch an AEW show and they do, a triple bacon moonsault in 10 seconds into the match. And then, they just keep doing things and doing things and doing things. And it's like, I can't process what the hell I'm watching. Like, that's why I can't stand it.
It reminds me of what you said there. It reminds me of watching those compilation videos on YouTube where it's like moves that made me go holy shit. And I can't tell you how many times throughout these videos that I've seen the spot where somebody's got somebody up for a pile driver, right? Or something like that. And you've got a guy on the top turnbuckle that does a shooting star press just to grab the guy's feet and help him do the the pile driver. Like, what the fuck was
yeah,
the
it does
point?
the spike part of it. Yeah, why?
What the
For
fuck was the point of the shooting star press in the first fucking place? Like, why couldn't you just jump off the top rope and just say, here you go, here's the help? You know, was the shooting star press necessary? It literally served no purpose in terms of it didn't do anything other than look ridiculous.
What did it? I'll tell you right now what it did. What it did is it got all the attention on the guy doing the flip and not the guy that just got spiked on his head, which is the whole point.
Right.
It's like, oh, they might have just fucking crippled this guy. They might have just broke his neck, but no, like, ooh, look at that guy. He flipped.
Yeah, right. And I swear that's.
I mean, that's actually what you're doing.
And I feel like that's what, you know, AEW is pretty much going for. Like, they want the audience of the people that are going, oh, cool, that guy flipped. I love that guy. Oh, that dude's an awesome wrestler.
Other
He
than
flipped.
that, for as far as actual in-ring psychology, what they're supposed to be watching and understanding, they don't get it.
Yeah.
They don't understand what the hell they're actually watching in the first place.
Yeah. Well, and you know, just the other day, I started watching No Mercy from 2003, and one of the matches in there was Bradshaw and Farouk, the APA. I mean, and this was kind of like in Bradshaw's like transition period almost. He didn't have the long hair and the goatee anymore. He had the shorter hair and a clean shaved face, but he was still in the APA. He wasn't JBL yet. So you had APA, Bradshaw and Farouk against the Basham brothers, which I don't know how many people remember the Basham brothers because they weren't around very long. But and the Basham brothers weren't great either. I mean, they weren't even brothers, so they didn't have that going for them. But either way, it was the APA, which was I mean, Bradshaw and Farouk were one of your classic tag teams. I mean, they were a unit. They acted as a unit because that's what tag teams are supposed to be. And the Basham brothers were also this. I mean, they at least had that tag team psychology. But they were a mediocre tag team at best. They didn't last very long. And they put on a damn good tag team match. It was a phenomenal tag team match. I can't even tell you when I've seen a tag team match that was even close to that good in recent years. Like in the last 5 years, I can't even. And that was, and again, I haven't watched, like, I don't even think I've ever watched No Mercy 2003 all the way through from beginning to end. That was just one match I happened to catch from 17 years ago that I didn't even care about. But I can't think of a match that tops that in terms of a tag team match in the last 5 years. That, you know, that was better than a match that I didn't even know about until yesterday.
Right.
You know,
well, that's what I mean. Talking about tag team wrestling, and I'll actually throw this in here, you know, as part of our original discussion about, you know, was with Wrestlemania. They got both the tag team title. Well, I should say 2 of the 3 because it sounds like we're adding NXT into this whole scenario nowadays. But
yeah,
they got the Raw and they got the SmackDown tag team titles supposed to be on the line at WrestleMania. Again, that may change because it sounded like Andrade was going to be out of this situation, and The Miz was supposed to be out of the situation for the SmackDown ones too. But either way, both of those are supposed to be in here, right? Well, only one of them is a traditional tag team match, where the other is supposed to be a triple threat ladder match, according to what I'm looking at right now. My feeling about this is that, well, they're throwing the ladder part in because they don't know how to do a tag team match. Nobody knows how to do a tag team match anymore. So let's throw the ladder involved, and then it takes the whole tagging your partner out of the element because nobody knows how to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody has a clue.
Oh,
so,
and I'm going to go on record right now and bet $5 on the fact that there's going to be a broken ladder spot in that match. If that match actually happens, there's going to be a broken ladder spot. Guarantee it.
Well, there has to be,
because it's been in every match for the last 10 years.
Right. But, you know, you watch, and AEW is really bad for it too, but WWE's getting bad for it as well. Well, you don't have actual tags. Somebody slap somebody on the shoulder and, oh, well, that's a blind tag. I don't think that's how the rule is written. I don't think it's ever been a thing. It's supposed to be a hand-to-hand tag slap, you know, hand-to-hand.
Well, even in the match that I watched from 2003 with, you know, APA and the Basham brothers, there'd be I've seen it in plenty of tag team matches throughout the years where, like, one guy gets whipped into the ropes or something like that, and as soon as the guy hits the ropes, his partner, you know, slaps him on the back, and that's considered a tag. You know, so then, like, the guy that got thrown into the ropes gets, like, spine busted or some shit and goes to pin him or something like that, but he's no longer the legal man anymore. I mean, I've seen that plenty of times. It's been like that for a long time. It might be getting overused now. You know, it was one of them things where it was used sparingly and it was used properly, the blind tags and stuff like that, it was used tastefully. You know, it wasn't every single match multiple times per match. Not that I remember anyway.
Well, I mean, even if they did do it, there was some kind of purpose or rhyme or reason for doing it. Now and I guess that's my point, is somebody will start doing it to, incorporate it in one way or another. And then about another generation goes by and these people watched it and go, oh, they're just doing this thing, but don't know why they're doing it. So they just start doing it for no reason, just to do it. And then, so now so my question is, if somebody gets whipped into the corner, I can slap the guy in the back of the head, especially if I'm wanting to run an angle where I'm mad at my partner. So I can slap him in the back of the head, right? And that's a tag. Okay, I'll have to remember that one. But then they jump in the ring, and again, as far as rules are considered, right? There's supposed to be a 5 count. You got to get the hell out the ring or else your team is disqualified. Well, that rule is, I don't know what happened to that rule. That just gets enforced whenever the referee feels like paying attention, I guess. Because you'll get a guy, slaps his partner in the back of the head, jumps in the ring, and then both of them, and the other guy hasn't got his ass whipped for the last half hour, but now he's fine, and now both guys are in, and they'll do shit for 1 to 2 minutes before they get back to one-on-one in the ring again. So what's the point of having the tags in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, I know that,
there's no cutting off the ring to separate the guy from the other guy. It's a psychology, and it's just everybody just doing everything.
And that was exactly what happened.
For the sake of doing it.
That was exactly what happened in the 2003 No Mercy tag team match that I was just talking about with the APA and the Bashams. The Bashams, for a good portion of the match, separated Farouk from Bradshaw, so he couldn't get the tag, and they worked on him and worked on him and worked on him, for a lengthy period of time. I mean, that's what you do in tag team matches, for fuck's sake. But I mean, it's a
lost art, man.
They've always been kind of the referee, at least in terms of rules or whatever. They've always been kind of relaxed on the 5 count, because they'll do double team moves and stuff like that. But I mean, the 5 count wasn't necessarily like written in stone per se. With like the Dudleys and the Hardys and stuff like that, they might go over 5 seconds, but they weren't in there for a minute, 2 minutes at a time. It wasn't like, hey, shouldn't this guy be out of the ring by now? It might have went on a little bit longer than 5 seconds to like maybe 7 or 8, So, I mean, it wasn't a strict rule, but it was kind of just like, it was more of a rule of thumb, I think, back in the day. And then, but yeah, now it seems like it goes on way too long because that tag team psychology is just gone. But I mean, you don't have tag teams anymore. You just don't. You've got these mashup tag teams that make no sense because you don't know what to do with both guys in this tag team. So it's like, hey, we've had nothing for these 2 guys for the last 6 months. We're going to give them both some TV time simultaneously. Let's put the Miz and R-Truth together and call them the Awesome Truth. It's fucking brilliant. That's such good shit. Like,
oh yeah.
That's why the tag team division is trash.
And it has been for years. Yeah, there has been no actual tag teams. And that's we're going to bring the women into this conversation now because
real quick. One of the reasons they don't have any actual tag teams anymore is because any tag teams that they actually had, they fucking buried. Look at the Ascension, for fuck's sake.
I mean, yeah, you can go on all day about that. The Ascension, the Revival. I mean,
any actual tag teams they've had aside from the Usos and the New Day, they fucking buried. And the Usos, I'm sorry, the Usos only got over because they're part of the fucking Anoa'i dynasty. Let's be honest.
I mean, I don't know about that. They are actually very good.
They are good, but I mean, would they have even gotten a start had they not been a part of the Anoa'i dynasty? I mean, fuck, dude. Let's be honest. They're good, but they're not. I mean, they're not good. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, they're brothers, so they're gonna have some sort of. In my opinion, if you're brothers and you grew up together, I mean, hell, me and you haven't wrestled a match in a while. It's been a while, but I feel like me and you, and we've never really even done tag team matches, you and I, but I feel like if you were to put us in a tag team match, me and you, it would be halfway decent because we're brothers. We grew up together. We know, I mean, just from growing up together, we would work better than most people. than just two random ass people thrown together. So I mean, the Usos I think are good in that respect, and that's about it. So that's my opinion. I mean, feel free to tell me I'm wrong if you want to, but I feel like the only reason the Usos even got as over as as pushed as far as they did was because of their heritage.
Well, my opinion, again, I think they're very, very good, but it was about the point that you just made to where there were no tag teams. Well, I mean, yes, they're brothers, but because they're brothers, they actually look like a tag team.
That too.
So they stand out just for that alone, whether they were a part of that dynasty or not. Since they are brothers, they look like a tag team. They act like as a tag team. They function like a tag team. They were going to stand out a little bit more, in my opinion, regardless amongst all of these mashed together tag teams. And it might be because of that heritage why they got more of a chance potentially. But they needed to have, the other stuff to back it up too.
Well, I mean, part of my opinion about their push and everything like that coming from their family dynasty and everything like that probably comes from the fact I don't remember which one was who, but I know one of them has had like quite a few legal troubles throughout his career, even while he's been champion, and they don't do shit about it. I mean, it's like, hell, I think RVD, back in the day when this happened to RVD, I mean, this was kind of like right at the beginning of the wellness policy. So it was more of I think we're going to make an example out of RVD than anything else. But, he was WWE champion, if I remember correctly, got busted for weed and had his entire push just crushed because he got busted with weed. Fucking one of the Usos had like a DUI and shit, got straight up fucking arrested, I think, while he was tag team champions, mind you, and they didn't do shit about it. So I mean, anybody from the Anoa'i dynasty, like Roman Reigns, the Usos, they've got a certain level above everybody else. Like they've got a certain level of leeway, they've got a certain level of opportunity just given to them that other people don't get. Again, my opinion, my previous statement about, RVD and one of the Usos while they were tag team champions, I could have my facts misconstrued on this point. That's 100% possible, but that's just what I seem to remember.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, the Usos, they have the look and everything like that. They're brothers. They kind of have a little bit of that tag team philosophy and all that stuff, but I don't know. To me, they're just another one of them teams that's just meh.
But every team is meh. Meh is like the greatest, you can get as far as tag team, because tag team wrestling doesn't exist. So,
Yeah.
I guess as far as the Usos go, that's actually pretty good.